lucky. Okay, well, we're hooked up. Let's go and try to smooth some stuff out, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys, welcome back. The sun is trying to shine through the clouds here. As you could tell a moment ago, it was raining. It was kind of windy and, well, not very pleasant overall. Fortunately for me, I'm out here regardless of the weather with my tractor because of one thing, and that is that cab right there. Today, I'm going to talk about that cab and tell you a little bit of a story about when I went to buy a tractor and how that cab ended up coming back home with me, and how I didn't really expect to ever have a cab tractor when I first started out looking. Anyways, what I'm doing here today, before I talk about that tractor, I'm smoothing out some dirt. I'm basically using my box blade, 78-inch MK Martin box blade, my 72-inch bucket there, trying to smooth out this dirt. As you would have seen probably a year and a half ago, this used to be a fern field, and you can see some leftover ferns there dying off for the season. But I'm trying to smooth this out. I'm going to throw some grass down, make it a little more pleasant. But obviously, I've got some serious roots to contend with, because if you've ever tried to get rid of a fern field, they definitely don't let go easy. I've got a bunch of roots here, and well, they're probably going to spark back up into the ferns, but I'm going to try to smooth this out regardless. Anyways, that's going to be for another day. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the tractor cab and why it ended up here at my place as opposed to at someone else's. This tractor cab here is on my 2012 Kioti DK40se HST, hydrostatic transmission. 40 horsepower at the engine, give or take 32, 33, I can't remember at the PTO. This thing's been a solid performer for me, but as I mentioned, I didn't really think it would ever be here, because when I started shopping, I had no intentions of buying a cab. I was probably going to lean towards an open station. Here's the reason why I think cab was the best decision for me, and I'm still happy with it 3 and probably a half years later after owning it, and well over 1,000 hours after buying it. This tractor here, it's allowed me to get out here in all types of weather conditions, and ultimately has made me really happy that I did spend a little bit of extra money to buy a cab. Here's the reasons why I think if you're out shopping for a tractor, dreaming of shopping for a tractor, or maybe looking to upgrade your tractor, you should consider a cab regardless of the fact that you maybe think open station is the best thing around. Here's why I think cabs are the best thing around. If you guys have been up here in central Ontario, Canada in the middle of winter, there's not a lot of things you can do outside without feeling cold, damp, wind burnt, and a mixture of those three. If you have a cab tractor, I got to tell you, I don't tend to even wear a coat. I don't wear a toque. I don't wear gloves. I don't wear long underwear or any of that stuff. I hop in that cab, I crank up the heat, I turn up the tunes, and I enjoy myself while I'm out clearing snow. Another thing that is great about that cab is it's going to protect me from the things that come around after the winter that maybe if you live in certain parts of the world you know all about, and that is black flies. Here in central Ontario, Canada, the black flies, followed by the deer flies, followed by the mosquitoes and horse flies and whatever other type of fly, is an absolute pain in the rear end. If you guys can imagine those flies buzzing all around you while you're out trying to do something like clear this little meadow here and smooth it out, it doesn't make life too fun. Having that tractor cab is a beautiful thing because I see those little bugs bouncing off the window, sticking to it, trying to get at me. And I just sort of wave at them as I, once again, turn up the tunes, and this time around I hit the AC. On that note about AC, in the middle of summer in this same location, central Ontario, Canada, our temperature, although in the winter it could be negative 35 Celsius, here in Canada in the summer it can be 35 above degrees Celsius, and so having that air conditioning is a beautiful thing. Getting back to my point about bugs, black flies, horse flies, stable flies, whatever you want to call it, flies, those are not the only problems that I encounter, especially in the middle of summer. Sometimes I'm out moving around logs, maybe back in the bush somewhere, and I come across some wasps. Well, especially the wasps that live in the ground, they don't tend to like it when you disturb them. When I'm inside that cab and those wasps come out, I don't have to do too much panicking. I just sort of give them the waveroo and I continue on my merry way. If I wasn't in that, well, if you can imagine, I'd take off running and probably wouldn't get too far before they let me know they're there. That's another reason I like that cab. In the summer, this tractor does a pretty good job at keeping me cool despite the fact that, well, it's fully enclosed by glass. This tractor in particular has windows right here which open outwards. This window opens all the way up, and well, that's pretty good at keeping you cool if you don't want to use the air conditioning, that is. I've also seen people who actually tint that glass, and so that's giving you some additional shade in addition to what's up top there. But obviously what's up top, that overhead shade, can be made available on any tractor, including open stations. As I think more and more about the nice weather and the big wide open spaces and the sun beating down on me, I think about another thing that tractor helps protect me from, and what that is dust. Now, I don't have a lot of big wide open spaces here. Pretty much if you look any way around me here, all you see is trees. I live in the middle of the woods. But for many of you fine folks, you live someplace where it's wide open. Maybe you're tending to a farm or some soil, and ultimately that can turn into a dust bowl, and having a cab tractor really protects you from that. Now, I know many of you will say, well, it'll just come in the windows. Well, you shut the windows, you turn on the air conditioning, and there are actually cabin filters which will block out some of that dust before you suck it in. So that's another reason I like having the cab tractor, blocks the dust. Now, something a little bit more relevant to me here is all the pollen and all the allergens that sort of float out of all these pine trees every single spring. When we have a cab tractor like this, the yellow pollen that you see coating everything, it doesn't go into the tractor cab and all over me and up my nose and ultimately make me feel pretty rotten. So that's a beautiful thing with the cab. Protects me from that pollen and what little dust I have floating around. The next point I'm about to make is probably going to be one of those points that are up for debate, and that's quite okay. If you guys feel differently than I do, feel free to post it down below in the comments. But having this tractor and having the tractor cab is really nice because it allows things to be just a little bit quieter. I always talk about cranking the tunes, but sometimes I don't just go in there and crank the tunes. I just go in there and sort of listen. But I don't listen to that engine sort of ticking, or I don't listen to the bucket or the forks or whatever scraping. I listen to not a lot. I just sort of relax in there. It's nice and quiet, definitely quieter than if I didn't have a cab. And that's a good thing in my opinion. Peace and quiet, no dust, no bugs, no heat. That's a beautiful thing. And almost on cue, as you guys can tell, the rain is coming back here, and typically this would be one of those times where you start to think about the clothing you have on and you run around looking for the rain gear and you throw it on, get back in the cab, maybe throw a blanket over your seat so you're not sitting in the wet getting your pants wet. But not for me. I just sort of stand out here and look at the rain, and I think to myself, boy, I'm glad I'm not going to be messing with you for too much longer. And then I beeline it into the cab. So heading into the cab is a beautiful thing, especially when the rain kicks off, and especially if you're not prepared for the rain. because you don't have to be taking any part of it. You hide out in there, you keep working, and you're feeling great. And before we go any further, some of you guys are probably going to say, well, you got a cab tractor. Of course you're going to say it's the best thing out there since sliced bread. Well, let's be honest here. I have operated open station tractors before. I know what it's all about. You're going to have that wet back seat. You're also going to have your dirt piled up high inside your tractor from blowing with the wind all over you. I know what it's like in there with an open station, and that's why I have a cab station. And just ducking inside here into the tractor cab, you guys are first and foremost going to notice, if you look up here, that is, it's relatively clean. Now, obviously, looking down here at the footwell, you guys are going to see all this dirt and debris that's fallen off my boots that I haven't cleaned up yet. But for the most part, if you look up here, with the exception of just a little bit of dust, it's relatively clean. And that holds true for all the gauge clusters and all the levers over here. It's relatively clean. If it started to rain like it did not too long ago, this would have coated all this with just a little bit of water, and as I worked the dirt here, all that dust would kick up and it'd stick to that water, and if you can imagine, that would be pretty much a mess here. You'd have it all over your hands and all over your pants and feet and everything else, and it wouldn't be very pleasant. So having the cab, having the ability to shut things up tight, really keeps the inside of the cab just a little bit cleaner. On that point, shutting the cab, you guys see that right there? That's a lock. I've got two of those, one door, two doors. I can lock this tractor cab, which is also very nice. And I'm not talking to keep out thieves and people who are going to try to steal or damage my tractor. I'm talking about keeping out young kids, keeping out people who shouldn't be near a tractor because they could get injured. That's probably the number one point, the number one thing that I really like about this cab tractor. I have the ability to lock that cab up, keep kids out of the seat there, make sure they're not going to get in there, get up to no good, move around some of the levers, and ultimately cause problems. Now, many of you are going to say, well, don't leave your tractor with the loader up, don't leave the 3-point implement up. Yeah, I get it, but here's the thing. Sometimes things happen, and sometimes other people use your tractor and they don't do what you do. And if you can avoid having someone get anywhere near the controls, that's a win in my book. Having the cab, lock her up, good to go. Okay, before we start talking about some of the bad things that I found with the cab, just know this. I've operated both cab and open station tractors before, and I can tell you, I'm not just saying I like cab tractors because that's what I got. I am kind of saying that, but I am saying I like cab tractors because I have compared it with what it's been like to have open station tractors and operate those. This is the cat's meow, if you can put it one way. This thing is what I would buy again because of the things I just mentioned. Now, there are a few things that sort of take away from owning a cab tractor and all the benefits. And what those come down to is sound again. I like having the peace and quiet. I like having the radio up when I'm doing some work out here. It's very peaceful for me, but sometimes I want to hear what's going around the tractor, what's going on around it. I can't always do that perfectly when I have the cab shut. Now, mind you, I can open up the windows very easily, and that's quite often what I do if I've got someone out here who's hollering at me. But the cab tractor, if you shut the windows, it is definitely harder to hear outside the tractor. And so that, if any, might be a detriment if you're trying to shop for one of these units. The next thing I'm going to tell you guys about in terms of a bad thing with cab tractors has to do with the back part of the tractor and when you're trying to hook up to a 3-point implement or attachment. This right here is really easy to do if you have one thing on your cab tractor, but if you don't have it, that really makes life miserable, especially after you just put down some extra money for a cab. And what it is that lever right there. That lever, which is exterior on the outside of the machine, allows me to, without going in the cab, raise and lower the 3-point implements. If you guys can imagine, if I don't have that lever there, then I have to go back inside the door like this, and I need to grab a hold of those right there, and then come on back and see if I moved it enough, adjust my pins here or top link or whatever I'm doing. And then if I didn't do it right, I have to go back and do the same thing again. That would get real old real quick. Having that lever here allows me to make all those same movements right at the back of the tractor. And so if you are getting a cab tractor, you better make sure that's there. You're not going to enjoy yourself, because the alternative is going around or opening this window and trying to reach. And I can't imagine that's overly safe as you're climbing all over the back end of the tractor. I'm sure some of you guys are going to mention this down in the comments, and what you're going to say is, you live in the middle of the woods, there's no way you need a cab tractor. You're going to end up having something jump up and break that glass, and it's going to cost you a fortune. And I agree, there is some risk, but we have to face the facts. The advantages of having a cab far outweigh, in my opinion, the disadvantages. And so I have a cab tractor for all those reasons I've already mentioned. If I'm going to have a branch kick up, maybe I drive over it and it bounces up and hits the side of the door, I'll take those chances. I think they're relatively low. Knock on wood, I haven't had anything come up and hit the glass in 3.5 years. Will it happen now that I've said that? Probably. But the fact is, just like I mentioned, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages in my opinion. So I'll take that chance. I haven't felt once driving through the woods that I was in a precarious situation where I was moments away from the glass breaking. I don't exactly park under big dead trees. I don't exactly drive over, you know, big massive piles of brush. I suppose if you did those things, you're probably increasing your chances of breaking the glass. But just like with everyone else, I'm careful, I respect the equipment, and I don't exactly feel like I should get rid of a cab just because I'm scared of the glass breaking. Although I probably wouldn't say that if it has broke and I had to break out my wallet. Well guys, I think I've made my case for owning a cab tractor. I really like it. It is a little bit more money, but I think the advantages definitely outweigh the disadvantages. At the end of the day, if I can keep people out of there by locking those doors who shouldn't be in there in order to safeguard them or someone else, that's the #1 reason that I like having a cab tractor. Now don't get me wrong, if an open station deal came at me, might I bite at it? Probably. I like a good deal just like the rest of you. But hey, this deal was there for me. I bought it. I'm very happy with it. I think you guys should check it out. Don't get me wrong though. If you really like feeling the cold temperatures in a February in Canada, you like feeling it right in your bones, you like feeling the wet on your behind when it's raining and you're cutting the grass, you like that pollen going right up into your nostrils so you can sneeze and your eyes water, get an open station, but it's not for me. Guys, you all take care out there. Do me that favor if you like this video. Give it a thumbs up and make sure you come back next time. We're going to be smoothing this thing out for good, and you guys can see whether I'm a half-decent operator or not. Thanks for watching. See you next time.